Okay. So check this out. First off, we out here making sure everything's good on the stream. And yes, I'm into fitness. That's where the buff comes in. And I'm a I'm not a gamer, but I do play Fortnite. But something that I also spend a lot of time in is schoolwork. I'm working on my doctorate. I'm in pursuit of that. This is my third year of the program. Finished the classes already for the summer semester, but I'm working on now the assignments. I started the class late, got in a little bit late, so I am most definitely behind. But going through and just reading, it's a ton of reading, but a lot of really good stuff. A lot that helps change your perspective and the way that you see things, view things, and approach things. And this particular assignment, it was the pre-assignment for my discipleship and worldview transformation class, and we had to read about 12 articles, and then we have to do a little summary. You can see on the screen here where I've started reading through and keeping my notes on some things, and down here at the bottom, this is where I have the articles I still need to read. So let's see, I've gotten one, two, three, four in. I was supposed to read one yesterday, but I didn't. And but I did want to do this before continuing on, because this is something that I really enjoyed and appreciated in this particular article. Um, but yeah, so to start this article, when I started reading it, I opened it up, 16 pages. I'm like, man, this is kind of a longer one. The other ones were maybe between 8 to 11 pages long. Um, Nothing too serious, right? But I wasn't sure where this one was going to go. Within Adventism, in particular, there's a wide spectrum of perspectives on Ellen White, her writings, and Ellen White is, if you talk to people who were Adventists and are not anymore, one of the big reasons is their perspectives on Ellen White's writings and her perspectives on certain things, which is a different discussion for another time. But this article right here, uh, it struck a really strong chord with me that I didn't see coming. So, first off, it ends up talking about this book, Steps to Christ. And this is a book that I've always enjoyed from since my time in canvassing, literature evangelism. It's a short book, 13 chapters. Um, it's an easy read. The chapters are not more than a few pages long each. Um, and if you were working on your like devotionals, your personal spiritual life, it's a great book to kind of use for your devotions because you can read a paragraph, a few sentences, and keep it pushing. All right. It doesn't take a lot of investment to read this book, which is one of the reasons I liked it because it was very hard to focus on uh, deeper themes and things for me at that time. I just needed something to get me in the door. Steps to Christ was that for me. Now, the beginning of the article here, even though it brought this up, it started talking more about the historical aspect of what the importance of the book was, and which was nice because I didn't know that it held this particular place. What I did know is that this book is one of the last ones that she wrote in a collection of five, and I think it's mentioned here. Yeah, five major books on the life of Christ. These five, and their thoughts from the Mount of Blessings, the Desire of Ages, the classic Christ Object Lessons, um, the Ministry of Healing, and then Steps to Christ. These five. Ellen White is the most widely um, published author, male or female, and translated in history. Okay. She's written a lot of stuff, but I'm going to argue that these five books are her most important and most valuable. Um, I'm going to suggest that for all the people that focus on the other things that she's written, and like I said, she's written a lot, I think the focus is misplaced. Not only do I think these are the five most important, it is factual that these are pretty much the last five books that she wrote in her life. She passed away in the early 1900s. I don't know why I want to say like 1911, something like that. I'd have to look it up. Don't quote me on it. But these are the books that she finished her life with. These are the books that I believe reflected her um, her truest or most mature perspective on spirituality. And these are also the books that I think get the least amount of shine. When people think of Ellen White and they think of her writings, they don't think about these books. They think about a lot of other stuff, but they don't think about these books. All right. So I'm just throwing that out there. Now, oh, and yeah, another thing I'll say on that, because of that, I'd already felt like Desire of Ages and Steps to Christ, these two go hand in hand in terms of their awesomeness and impact. If you want some books that really show you who Jesus is and the true, I felt this for a long time, like spirituality is a simple thing. Humans have complicated it. God keeps it simple, humans make it complicated, and the book Steps to Christ simplifies it. And a lot of people will use Ellen White's writings to complicate it. Irony of ironies, right? But that's why I like this book so much. It's a book that I have tried to read through every year. I have failed every year to read it through, but I'm always reading some part of it year to year. All right. And it keeps it simple. I love it. Major, you are right. Like it's tough. It's tough. And I have my perspectives on that. Like these five books here to me are peak, and it could get me in trouble in some regards, but the other ones, like I'm not as concerned about those. I'm not as concerned about the other ones. I'm gonna stick here with these five. Um, Thoughts from the Mount of Blessings, Steps to Christ, Desire of Ages, Ministry of Healing, and what was the other one? Christ Object Lessons. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even mad at that. I'm not mad at that, bro, because there's so much in her writings that gets used and abused, and there are so many people out there that try to say things with her writings that she never intended. Um, it can really be a minefield when it comes to um, her writings, because everyone is trying to direct you in one way or the other. But to me, these books are where it's at. It keeps it simple. It keeps it simple, and it doesn't get caught up in all the stuff that everybody really wants to debate. When the simplicity of what it means to be a Christian and a follower of Christ is really highlighted in these books in a way that a lot of people don't give credence for. Yeah, and I agree with you there, because you know, obviously she had some prophetic moments for sure, but you look at what Ellen White said about herself, and she never claimed to be a prophet. Yeah, she did have moments where she was encouraging people to listen to what she had to say, even strongly encouraging people to listen to what she had to say. But in terms of her perspective on herself, she never claimed that. It's almost like this mythos that's built up around her that forces this perspective, um, when she very clearly says her writings are a lesser light and they're pointing to a greater light. In addition to, if people actually studied the Bible, they wouldn't need her writings. Like she said these things. So, like I said, Ellen White, I, my brother is, he's doing some searching with how he relates to this. Big Dog does as well, and it's pretty interesting, the discussions that we've had kind of on where we stand with Ellen White and her writings. And I understand their resistance. Um, and I understand their kind of hesitance and belligerence isn't the right word, but it's like I understand that they're closed primarily to that, and I would say that Ellen White actually suggesting that if people studied the Bible enough that they wouldn't need her writings is an endorsement for people who want to just study the Bible. Um, the only caveat is that people actually do study the Bible. So if that's their standpoint and that's their take, if that's your take, I'm good with that. And I think when it comes to Ellen White, because of how weedy it can get, um, because of how murky it can get for people, and how the focus is on so many other different things that people want to emphasize, and especially that people seem to not want to acknowledge that she was growing in her experience as well. Um, so they don't give Ellen White as a human the opportunity to have said something and change her mind later, and then express something different later. I have a big problem with that perspective and that kind of um, viewpoint of Ellen White and her writings, because then you make somebody a monolith, and once you do that, it makes it very hard for us to get anything useful from that, and the discussion really ends up not being so much about any positive contributions, but on like these little singular points, and the discussion gets hung up on those things. But yeah, you get what I'm saying. And yeah, 100%, 100%. But continuing on through this article here, um let's see, there were a few things I liked. The beginning of it, it was kind of slow for me. After they mentioned steps to Christ, I wanted to kind of see where they were going with it. um and I thought this was interesting. It talks about this place, Harbor Springs, Michigan, which we have a Benton Harbor in Michigan, and we have a Berrien Springs in Michigan, and apparently we have a Harbor Springs in Michigan. There's a lot of originality going on up here in Michigan. But yeah, this was a pretty cool note too. The name Steps to Christ. Uh, this guy says that it probably came from the story of Jacob's ladder, Jacob's dream when he saw a ladder reaching up to heaven, and the explanation was given about the vision that Jesus was the ladder, the angels ascending and descending, Christ the mediator. Okay, we get that. Um, and then let's see, talking about leading up to the 1880s. I thought this was really interesting. Um, Adventist history in okay, let me back up. The Adventist movement had its seeds kind of originating in the late 1840s. And over the course of about 10, 15 years, you have a number of people who come together, Ellen White included, who end up doing some Bible study, having some pretty amazing experiences, and end up kind of founding the Adventist faith. Now, context matters, and the time that this was happening has an influence. There's other religions and things popping up as well during the same time. If you're familiar with the Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot of these other faiths started originating around these times as well. And yeah, that's a side note. The point is that this is a very young faith in the late 1840s, but going down through history, about 40 years later, you get to 1888. This 1888 was a general conference session in Minneapolis, and Adventists just had their general conference session this past year in St. Louis. Yeah, not Indianapolis. That was last time, I think. But yeah, so it's this big gathering. All the Adventists come together, so on and so forth. If you know about Boy Scouts, a big Boy Scout, I almost said camporee, but that's Pathfinders, I think. I don't know what they call it for Boy Scouts, but a big gathering where Boy Scouts from all over the country come to the same place. If they do something like that, that's like what General Conference is. So by the time you got to 1888, people were very focused on the legalistic aspects, the doing. So, what are the laws? What are the rules? We're going to follow the laws. We're going to follow all the rules. We're going to be perfect because there's a few verses taken out of context in the Bible, Matthew 24:14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached into all the world as a witness to all nations, then the end will come. Verses like this, um, even the gospel commission, Matthew 28, 18 to 20. Verses like that taken out of context. So the focus of Adventism becomes doing right because when we do right, then Jesus is going to come back. Okay. So the lens of the gospel commission is interpreted as, well, we need to go and tell everybody about this, and everybody needs to change, or everyone needs to get a chance to accept this message. Otherwise, they're going to hell. And you can imagine just how well that goes over with people, right? Not very well. But even within Adventism itself, now you have this focus on trying to make sure everyone is doing all the right things, right? Legalism, as I said. Um, if you go back into the Bible and you look at the Pharisees in the time of Jesus, there's a show out right now. I think they just finished season 5, The Chosen. If you've seen that, it does a pretty good job giving you an idea of what it was like in the time of Christ with the disciples and so on. But you also get to see the Pharisees and how, as the religious leaders of that time, they're claiming to be the ones who are the top dogs. It's a similar kind of environment where it's a very legalistic type thing. People are saying these are the things you have to do, and if you don't do these right things, you're not going to be accepted. But also, on the other hand, if you have certain life conditions that are going on, it shows that you're on the outside as well. So if somebody was crippled or lame or blind, oh well, you ain't perfect. Then God's done with you. You must have done something. Somebody sinned. That's why you have this problem. That's what it was. Because you didn't do right. They connected these things in a very twisted way to say, um, if you're not perfect, then you must have sinned. Somebody must have sinned. Something is wrong with you. That's why you're not whole. And you can just imagine what a message like that would do to people. Anybody who look at injuries today. How many people have some kind of injury, some kind of health issue that they're dealing with? And then the perspective is going to be, well, because you have this problem, because you're not this prototype, well, you have a problem. Somebody's problem has resulted on this curse on you, and you can't be a part of the club. You end up having this kind of mentality coming all the way back down through to 1888, where there's this huge focus on uh, the law. The law has its place, right? But when you read through the Gospels, you also find every now and then, obviously I'm being sarcastic, every now and then you find verses that talk about God being love, right? So the law and love have to coexist somehow. If the Ten Commandments as a law is a transcription of God's character, but God is love, then the two have to exist. You can't separate one from the other. Okay. And I think that's very important to recognize, because a lot of times in spirituality, that's exactly what happens. You have people who want to emphasize the law, and you're either keeping it all like this, but there's no love, there's no mercy, there's no accommodation, there's no forgiveness. It's either you're in or you're out. You're doing it right or you're not. Right. And then on the other side, you have, well, God loves us all. You don't have to follow the rules. God loves you anyway. And both of these at their extreme ends have issues. The law and the love are intertwined. You cannot separate them. And you need both of them to have the complete picture of who God is. All right. Adventism going up into 88 had half of the picture and the other half was missing. In response to this controversy and in response to this issue that Ellen White sees happening in the church, she writes the book Steps to Christ. Okay. So she ends up changing the view and the perspective and the focus, where people are so into, hey, are you doing the right thing? And you have to realize, excuse me, when it comes to just the concept of doing the right thing, How many people do you know that put up a front, and when you see them, they're doing the right thing, but behind closed doors, or when people aren't watching, they're doing all kinds of nonsense? Jesus called out the Pharisees for doing that. There's a lot of people we know today that are doing stuff like that. there, there was just a video that came out about this CEO of a company who was at a Coldplay concert, um, with a side piece who happened to be the HR director for the same company. They got busted on the kiss cam at a Coldplay concert. They've been doing a pretty good job keeping it on the wraps, not letting anybody else know, doing everything by the book, right? And then they got caught. When they thought nobody was looking, suddenly the camera's on you. That's crazy, right? But how many people do we know that live like that? How many people do we know that do stuff like that? Trying to live by all the P's and Q's, dot all the I's, cross all the T's in public. But behind closed doors, it's a different story. Can't have that. You can't have that. And Ellen White's book, Steps to Christ, it cuts through that nonsense and it cuts through that noise, and it says, no, if we're trying to do this thing, this is what it has to look like. It can't be focused on this. It can't be focused on this image. Um, it can't be. It's not going to accomplish the thing you hope it accomplishes if you do it this way. So Steps to Christ, right? Now, let's see. I've kind of summarized a lot and skipped over scrolling through, so I don't know where I am in the document right now. Yeah. See, oh, there's so much good stuff here. All right, I'm gonna highlight this and talk about it because this goes with it as well. When there's a focus on works, all right, this is the Adventist problem leading up to 1888. When there's a focus on works, you tend to have less faith because now it's up to me and what I can do. But the problem is within Christianity and within Adventism in particular, the emphasis is on what Christ has done. That's the thing that saves me, not anything that I can do. So salvation has to be by faith. It has to be me believing, having faith in something that Jesus has done, and then responding in a certain way out of gratitude for that. That's what the salvation by faith piece is. The contrast to that is the legalism that we've talked about here, the thing that Adventism was getting caught up in leading up to 1888. That's salvation by works. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Oh, but I thought Jesus, no. I have to keep all these laws. I have to do this stuff all the way right. And if I do, all right, am I back? Yeah, I'm back. Okay. So that perspective there is what we have to look out for, right? Faith without works is dead, and works without faith is dead. They also have a happy medium, but you can't be all either extreme. Again, is bad. Balance is key, and when it comes to spirituality, religion in general, balance is key. Keep that in mind. Just as a rule, balance is good for so many things. Imagine that. But yeah, especially here, you can't be all, well, yes, I believe and I believe, so it doesn't matter what I do. And you can't be all, well, I'm just going to work my way to salvation, and there isn't anything worth believing in. It's both. You believe that Christ's sacrifice for you on your behalf gives you access to something that you never would have had a chance for at all as a human. And then you, in gratitude for what Christ has done for you, you choose to will your will to him so that you can do the good things as a fruit, as an outflow of what you've already received, not in an attempt to gain something that you have yet to receive. That's the difference. Okay. True salvation by faith. I'll say it again. True salvation by faith is accepting what Jesus has done for you. He's done something on your behalf that you are not capable of doing. And because you are grateful for what he's done for you, you make the choice to live in a way that shows your gratitude for what he's done for you. That is salvation by faith, and where the works fit into that. All right. They go together. So she starts introducing this concept like, wait a second, we need to refocus. It isn't about this legalism. It's about what Jesus has done. Now, if that's the case, right here, for Ellen White, repentance and confession are the appropriate human responses to God's offer of salvation, and they're closely connected to spiritual growth and discipleship. If the point of it is faith, growing in your appreciation for what Christ has done for you, and then living in response to that, repentance and confession are parts of these things. These are not things that you do publicly to try to earn something. They're things that you do because you're grateful for what's been done for you, right? Going back to that CEO who got caught at the Coldplay concert. It isn't that you hear this apology and all the Twitter posts trying to cover up for it. It's like after the fact that he got caught, right? It's, I'm in this position. Let me say what I need to say and repent and confess because I'm grateful for where I am. It's different. It's different. You've seen people who don't apologize until they get busted. That's not the same as somebody stepping up and saying, "Hey, this is what's going on. I was wrong, blah blah blah," and they go from there. You get what I'm saying? All right. But what I'm trying to say here is that this idea of discipleship, then, it's in response to something that's been done for us, and it isn't trying to earn something that has already been given freely. That's what the salvation piece is. If we don't understand that, then the way that we view spiritual growth and the way that we view trying to get other people to embrace our same belief system is completely different. For example, if I believe in more of a service level approach and I'm going to just be focused on, hey, people need to be doing the right thing. It makes it very easy for me to go into a place, be all super strict with stuff. And as long as people are visually doing what I want them to do, I think I've succeeded. And I view good spiritual growth as, all right, you were baptized, cool. You did these sacraments, okay, cool. As far as I can tell, you're not doing X and Y and Z, okay, you're cool. Good to go. I've done my part. And I leave. And then behind closed doors, everything goes back to normal. Or we can have the perspective of, well, if this is about who we are, this is the doing versus being, okay? If this is about who we are and living a certain way as a gratitude response to what's been given to us, how does that change the way that we grow? Now I'm not trying to put on a show to make the right people think I'm doing the good stuff, or to make the right people think I'm doing the right things. Now I'm just living and just being, and the right things are happening as an outflow of who I am. And people are able to look at me and see, wow, this person, why is this person doing this? Why are they living like that? Why are they the way that they are? Well, it's because I'm grateful for what's been given me. So I have a different perspective on life. I'm not running around trying to chase the approval of this and the satisfaction of that and the clout of that. I don't get caught up in that anymore, because now I'm just being, and it totally changes the way that you view spiritual growth and how you grow and how you expect other people to grow. Instead of looking for outward compliance, all right? If it's about doing, you're looking for compliance. Now you're looking for something else. Now you're looking for, hey, let's journey together. Let's take steps along the path together. And it's okay if we make mistakes and mess up. It's a learning process. Your viewpoint is completely different depending on if you're coming at it from this legalistic standpoint, which is all focused on doing, or if you're focused on the gratitude standpoint from what Jesus has already done for you, which is the being aspect. All right. Steps of Christ talks about this. Once again, 10 out of 10 recommend. All right. So going on down, it talks about justification, sanctification, these different processes, these different terms. We can talk about those later. Let's see. Prevenient grace. That's a good term to look these things up. How far down was I here? There was a lot of good stuff. But even going through like the first half of this article to this point, I didn't find I was reading it because obviously I need to read it for the class and taking my notes as I go. But there was something with, let me see, maybe I have it in my notes over here. Okay. So yeah. So this is okay. This is where it turned. I'm so close. Yeah, this is it. Okay. Yeah. Oh man, what's this? I'll just read it. I want to highlight it, but I don't. That'll work because I did. Okay, perfect. Check this out. The plants and flowers grow not by their own care or anxiety or effort, but by receiving that which God has furnished to minister to their life. We've been talking about it this whole stream so far. Gratitude, it's a state of being, a response to what Jesus has done for us. That's how the plants and flowers grow, not by their own care or anxiety, not because they're trying to keep all the rules and do everything right, but they're receiving something that's given to them freely. All right. The child cannot, this is the allegory, the child cannot, by any anxiety or power of its own, add to its stature. You see kids grow up all the time, right? Is it because they're doing something? I know that we have surgeries out here where people can break their legs and they come out taller. But every kid ain't doing that. From the time a kid is born up until the time they're an adult, they're not getting all these surgeries. They're not the ones saying, "Hey, mom, let me get this surgery to get." They're not doing that. It isn't by any anxiety or power of its own that they get taller. No more can you, by anxiety or effort, secure spiritual growth. So again, spiritual growth has less to do with the things that we do. This is the misconception. And again, I keep bringing it back, keep repeating it, so we're on the same page here. This is the problem that Adventism was struggling with leading up to 1888. They were focused on doing. Their view was the opposite of this for a lot of people. What we do is going to secure our spiritual growth. All right? That's the perspective that they have. But here she very clearly speaks out against that. This is the book Steps to Christ. So the growth, and this was probably my favorite part here. In order to grow, we are invited to abide in Christ, for it is only as one is dependent on Christ that one receives power to resist temptation or to grow in grace. You are just as dependent upon Christ in order to live a holy life as is the branch upon the parent stock for growth and fruitfulness. Apart from him, you have no life. So she brings this in through the book Steps to Christ to illustrate, hey, this is what this thing is supposed to look like. We're sitting here focusing on all these rules, all these qualifications, all this and that, all this checklist. And no, it's supposed to be being with Christ, abiding. And you can see over here on my notes. Let me make it a little bit bigger. I love this part right here. Now, abiding as a concept is amazing. It was in this same class. Let me back up. What's the clearest way to say this? Okay, I'm reading this paper late. I read this paper like 2 days ago, but I was supposed to read through this before the class began. Okay? In the class, after the time that, oh man, this is so confusing. So we're sitting in the class, right? Everyone who's in the class should have read these documents before coming to class. One of the days of class, we had a worship on John 15. Go ahead and read John 15, the first 11 verses. And there's like 7 or 8 or 9 different times where Jesus says directly to the disciples, abide in me and I abide in you. Abide in me, abide in me, abide in me. Trust in me, dwell in me, abide in me. And what I realized, you can check the video that I made on kind of my reflection to that class. Like, abiding is the key. This state of being, abiding, is the key. That's where the victory is. When it comes to spirituality, when it comes to Christianity, it isn't, the doing is secondary, because people can do a whole lot of things and be a whole different person. All right. I'm sure Diddy gave to a lot of charities. You know what I'm saying? But I think we have a pretty good idea of what he's about, like for real, for real. Okay. Whether he got off or not. But it's about being. Who are you? That is the question. Who are you being? Who are you? And abiding, that is the key. That is the goal of spirituality, is to abide with Jesus. In the Christian tradition, in the Christian faith tradition, in most of them, I can't say all, but in most of them, there's this idea of heaven and going to be with Jesus for eternity. So it makes little to no sense to think that I'm going to believe in a faith that says the goal of this is to be with Jesus forever, but I'm not going to live like that now. And I'm not going to be that kind of person here and now. You know what I'm saying? Like, the goal and how to get there, people get it confused, because when people get to heaven, do they think they'll be doing stuff to like continue to earn their place there, to earn their keep? I actually don't know what people think about this stuff. Let me know. But if the goal is, as stated by many of these Christian faith traditions, to be with Jesus forever, then everything that we do here is leading up to that. It's part of that. That's what I'm saying. It's about the being. It isn't this endless pursuit of doing and doing and doing and doing. And are you good enough? Have you done enough? It's not that. It's about being, which not only changes the game from an access standpoint, more people can do it, because guess what? Anybody can be. We may not all be able to do the same things, but all of us can be. All right? It's about abiding. So it was pretty cool tying it all back, because this, when we had that day where we had that worship thought from John 15, it totally changed my perspective on everything spirituality wise. And the word abide, the concept of abiding, I have not been able to get it out of my head for the last month and a half now. When I sleep, when I wake up, when I go to bed, when I'm going through my classwork, when I'm taking notes here, I see it everywhere. When I'm doing my devotions, when I'm taking time to be abiding with Jesus in my personal devotions, I'm seeing it. I just read, man, Psalm 37, one of my favorite chapters. And all throughout the text, if you look in my Bible, I'll grab it. I'll grab it. Okay, so check this out. This Bible has seen some better days. It's kind of beat up. But when I find chapters and verses that really speak to me and that I really enjoy, my Bible ends up looking like this. I take notes. I'm coloring. I'm drawing. It's like, oh, these things all speak to me. A lot of the things, I just read through this again yesterday, but I realized that a lot of the language that's in this verse, I never connected it to abiding, but it's all right here. Verse 3, trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. That's abiding. Delight yourself also in the Lord is abiding. Commit your way to the Lord, abiding. Trust also in him, abiding. Rest in the Lord, abiding. Wait patiently for him, abiding. Wait on the Lord again, abiding. Delighting yourself in the abundance of peace, abiding. the Lord upholds him with his hand, abiding. It says dwell forevermore, abiding. Dwell in it forever, abiding. The law of his God is in his heart. That's abiding. Wait on the Lord, abiding. Keep his way, abiding. All of this from trust in him. The last words of the chapter, Psalm 37, abide. So this concept goes through scripture. It isn't just something that pops up here and there. And shoot, man, it's things like this. It's moments like this when I think, man, do I want to change the direction of my dissertation or not? Because I'm telling you, man, I'm telling you, uh, you're talking about how many hundreds of pages I'm going to have to write for this thing, and if I change direction, boy, that's a whole lot of work. That's a whole lot of work that I have to do over again. But it's like, I, in terms of spirituality, I cannot remember the last time something spoke to me so clearly as this theme and this idea of abiding. This is where the victory is. This is where you win. Devotions and the time that you spend with God is not about, oh man, did you get this super insight? Did you figure out how to deal with it? Like, did you get the secret unlock? It's not about that. I used to think devotions were good if I was getting great insight and learning new stuff, and that the devotions were a waste of time, and that it just sucked if I wasn't getting anything from it. But that's not the point. The point is that I was there in that moment, abiding. That was the win. It wasn't about what I was doing or thinking I was getting from it so that I could go do some stuff and share that. It wasn't about that. It was about, am I being here in this place to be with God? That's it. And it's from that point that every good thing comes out of. Amazing. Let's see, what other notes do I have here? I could go on with this forever, but I think you get the point of what I'm saying. Abiding in Jesus is the key. We are dependent upon him to live the holy life, right? It isn't something that we are doing of ourselves. We can't. We're dependent on him to do that. It's from abiding in him that the outflow comes as a response of gratitude. Apart from him, you have no life. People who are trying to do all these things, but in they're trying to do more of these things and not focusing on just being with Jesus, is very difficult for that to actually go somewhere and be fruitful, because they're not connected to the branch. I'm the vine, you are the branches. John 15, it's there, right? Man, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. Look at that. Many have an idea that they must do some part of the work alone. They trust in Christ for the forgiveness of sin, but now they seek by their own efforts to live aright. It's easier for people to think that it's about doing and what I have to do, because that I can see. I can measure my own progress. I can compare what I've done to somebody else. It's more tangible in our minds as humans. It's much harder to live by faith and to say, well, I'm just going to live in simple gratitude and do these things because of what Christ has done for me. And that's the kind of person I'm going to be. It's harder for people to do that. But it's the necessary thing. That's the switch that we have to make in our minds. That's the perspective. That's the adjustment that we have to make when it comes to what it means to be a follower of Christ. It isn't about doing this and doing this. It's about being with him. That's what it is. What else? What else did I have here? Yep, I read that. Da 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 da. All aspects of Christian growth are dependent on our union with Christ. Her perspective of perfection. Yeah. This is a good one. So, spirituality, religion, Christianity, and the idea of perfection. Once again, if you've been following with my all over the place discussion, you have two different ways you can go with this. You can go down the path of doing, or you can go down the path of being. And doing, depending on which one you lean towards, like faith and works, you can look at it that way as well. Depending on which one you lean towards, it will impact what you're looking for other people to do. It'll determine everything about how you act as a Christian and as a believer. And it will also define what you view as perfection. For people who are focused on doing, almost immediately when they think of perfection, they're thinking of doing things to this certain standard, right? So now you're in this endless pursuit, this endless chase of something that you can't do because you're not perfect. But because you're so convinced that it's about the doing, you're going to stay there beating yourself up when you don't get there. And it's just it's a hard cycle to be in. But if you're on the other side and you realize it's about being and it's about faith, then showing up is where you get the win. Jesus already did the work. He did the work. We just have to believe in that work. And perfection from this standpoint is now not what am I doing, but do I believe that Christ's sacrifice was a perfect sacrifice? You see the difference? It isn't about what I'm doing that's perfect. It's about what Christ did that was perfect. That's the doing versus the faith. And if I can accept the faith, it changes who I am, because now I'm not sitting here doing all these things in pursuit of something. I'm being somebody who is grateful for what Christ has already done for me. There's this trickle down effect. It goes deep. And I think the key is for each and every one of us, we have to be willing to question where we are with this. Am I more of a doing type, or am I more on the being side? Do I struggle with the faith aspect? Is it easier for me to keep track of the things I do? How do I view the things that I do in comparison to what others do? How do I judge people based on that? These are questions we have to reflect on for ourselves. The goal of a disciple of Christ is to reflect the character of Christ. That's being. Reflecting is being. A mirror, when you stand in front of a mirror, is the mirror doing something, or is it just being? It's being exactly what it is, and it's reflecting. That's our goal. To be. It's being. The spirit of unselfish labor for others gives depth, stability, and Christ-like loveliness to the character, and brings peace and happiness to its possessor. When people are so caught up in doing, it's very hard to be happy, because they're always going to feel like they're lacking and less than. It's very hard to feel peaceful, because you have no assurance of salvation, because you have to do something perfectly to earn it. But when you're worried more about the being, guess what? You have space to be unselfish and to give for others, right? It brings stability, because stability, what a word. If I'm trying to depend on what I do, you guys know this just as well as me, we go like this. James 1, I think, talks about this. People moving all over like the waves. Like, you can't count on them. But we're humans, and we're very hard to be counted on as well. All of us, myself included. If I have to depend on what I'm doing for stability, I'm not going to be stable very often. But if I'm looking at it from the standpoint of being, and I'm looking at it from what Jesus has done, would I consider Jesus to be a pretty stable person? I think so. When the disciples were out on the water, Matthew 14, John 6, they were very unstable. The boat was getting tossed around. But as soon as Jesus steps into the boat, they're either at shore, a stable place, or the storm stops, stability. So being with Jesus is what gives us stability, not anything that we can do. Those dudes were trained fishermen. They knew boats. They knew the water. They knew Lake Galilee. They'd been there for years. But it wasn't about what they were doing. What they knew how to do, and anything that they could do, was not going to give them stability. Christ-like loveliness to the character brings peace and happiness. When you can rest on something that is stable, and now you can take a step back, because it isn't all on you. You can what's a good word? You can just kick your feet up, because you know that somebody else is taking care of it. And so it changes how you can be in that moment because of that, right? It makes it easier to be happy, because your happiness isn't so much focused on me and what I'm doing, but it's on what somebody else has done. I'm happy and I'm grateful for what Jesus did for me. So yeah, I think there's more here. There's probably a lot more. Yep, faith and works. We talked about that. but yeah, I'll finish up by saying this. Um, this book, Steps of Christ, once again, an excellent read. Of all the different things, Ellen White, most widely published author, male or female in history, of all the different things that she wrote, this is the one that has made the biggest impact for me personally. It's one of the smallest books that she wrote, but I think it packs the biggest punch. It came into a moment of Adventist history um, just after 1888. She wrote this in 1892. The book Steps of Christ was written in 1892, 4 years after this 1888 kind of fighting or infighting with legalism and stuff. And it breaks down spirituality and Christianity and what it means to be a follower of Christ in such a simple way. Most people that get caught up reading Ellen White's earlier stuff might not believe that the same person wrote Steps to Christ because it's so different. But hey, she was human. She had the opportunity to grow. She did. And because of her experience and because of what God showed her, she was able to give us this book. And I agree. The simplicity with which this book breaks down these concepts in 13 small chapters, that is to me the best thing that I've seen outside of the Bible to help us understand what it means to be a good Christian and to be a good follower of Christ. Not to do Christianity right, not to do following Christ right, but to be, because that's what it's about. Being, abiding with Jesus. That's how we win. That's how we grow. That's how we succeed. That's how this stuff makes sense, by being with Jesus. It's not about the things we do. Never was, never will be. It's responding in gratitude to what Jesus has already done for us and choosing to be people who want to be with him for that. And we live that way and our lives reflect that. All right. That's all I got for now. I was on. Oh, what? It's been an hour? Yeah, I'm going to sleep. All right, y'all. Come through next time. We're not done talking about this stuff yet. This is just one article. And it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 more to read and respond to. So there will be a lot more doctoral updates and year 3 pursuits and vlogs and lives to come. Hope you enjoyed it. Come through next time. It's fun sharing and just talking about this stuff. So hopefully you're getting something out of it. Good.